And I wouldn't hold that against a man if he were viewing a woman the same way. Like, if your mindset is that you're looking to aspire to maybe open a business, maybe run a business, or to be successful, that you would try to align yourself with someone else that's successful, the hell's wrong with that?
I saw a video of him on TikTok and was like, he's cute. Let me message him, right? Not thinking anything of it.
Specifically, who would not hire a woman in a particular role that I want to have a life with, because we have common interests, common goals, and common values.
Cheers! Welcome back to Fuck Your Podcast. I'm Emma Pardo.
And I'm Katie Martin. And on today's episode of Fuck Your Podcast, we're going to talk about what probably a lot of podcasters talk about, but kind of the man versus woman, as far as roles in the workplace, in the household, in entrepreneurship, and some things that we notice and kind of our take on it. So welcome. Should we talk about should we say happy Friday?
I mean, we could. Like, we're probably never gonna record on a Friday,
right? So,
but by the time you hear this, happy Friday,
right? Exactly. So what are you drinking today?
Water again. I just had a Pepsi. I had to get my caffeine in for the day. Started to get a headache, so I'm switching to water.
That's fair. I got a really nice Frappuccino,
nice.
Frozen coffee. This one is called like a Blossom.
It's a dessert smoothie?
It's kind of like a dessert smoothie.
It's called a milkshake.
Yeah, basically. Well, it's cold. It has coffee in it somewhere. I mean, it looks pretty white, but cold brew coffee, rose water. What was the other? Oh, cherry. There's some sort of cherry flavor in there.
Fruity and then milk. And caffeinated.
Yeah. Fruity and caffeinated, doesn't taste too much like coffee. It's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
Nice. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's dive into it today. Let's talk about it. First off, let's talk about what sparked this topic idea.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's a few different things that sparked this topic idea, but I think what gave me a ton of questions even today, there's a lot of podcasts out there that's like, I mean, if you think of like Andrew Tate's podcast or some of these that are super controversial, there's like a whole bunch of them, the Pearl podcast. And it was some clips from the Pearl podcast that I saw where I'm just like, do they really believe these things that are so like extreme one way or the other? Or is it like clickbait podcast topics? Because I don't really feel as if there's this huge population that has this like polarizing view on the patriarchy and like men in general are losing their masculinity and that women just hate men and they're trying to take over. It's like, calm down. Calm down.
I think a reason there's a rise in this, like, I think it's toxic masculinity, in my opinion. I think it's a reverted mindset of what used to be and where women were, and where women were are not where women are today. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just unlocking that, or not even unlocking, revisiting that mindset that got buried when women started gaining more rights and allowing the men that still have that mindset to run rampant. And I think it's glorified by people like Andrew Tate to where it seems like it's a noble thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And maybe that's just because that's the side of it we hear more, because in general, toxic masculinity has probably always existed. It just has become a buzzword, which is kind of annoying, because then it kind of really distracts away from the actual issue. Just like you have toxicity and on the feminist side of things. So like there's extremes on both ends, but it's like they're taking back something that was taken away from them. And there was nothing ever really taken away
right
from men. And I think that's the point that they miss.
Right. I think, in my opinion, being a strong woman, you and I are both very strong women in our households and life in general. And I think the reason why there's like this spike in glorification of this toxic masculinity, like you said, it's a buzzword, but that's the best way I could put it right now. I think there's such a spike in this because women are now proving so many things. And not just now, it's been like this for however long. And it's women don't need men. And this is not a podcast episode to like glorify women,
Right.
but that's the reality of it. Women are gaining their independence and taking their lives and making with it what they want. And I think men feel left out, that they don't feel like they've done it all. You know what I mean? Like they've built women, which is not true.
Well,
I don't know. That's my take
I mean,
on it.
that's definitely an interesting perception of it. Like you're going to have a different point of view from pretty much anybody, like depending on your age, depending on your gender, where
Right.
I don't even really think it's even that complex. Like it's simply you have big shifts in society. And at the end of the day, people should just be treated like people. And it's not that women have independence where they don't need a man, so to speak. It's because you have gay couples, right? But it's more about people seek partnership and
Right.
people seek if building a life together regardless of the gender, right?
Right.
And when you decide, and that's the whole thing of, you get some people who are very independent and they're not seeking a partnership with somebody regardless if you're a man versus a woman, but there's so much stigma and so much pressure of an independent woman is seen as a man hater, as seen as somebody who doesn't have priority, like to play her role, right?
Right.
And it's like, who, like at the end of the day, who gives a shit what the role are and what the role is between either one? And that's the thing that boggles my mind, because you can have I hate saying like equality, but at the end of the day, like a marriage, because this is what a lot of these topics were. The podcast that I saw today was specifically talking about marriage. Like, well, I don't feel like I need to be married. It's just a piece of paper, which, yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that perspective as well. She's like, and the point that a woman was trying to make in this podcast was that she's like, I'm just seeking to have a partner, like somebody who contributes just as much as I do.
Right.
And I don't really see where people get so like caught up in that, like that's a wrong thing. Like that having a household where a man and a woman can provide for the family, a man and a woman can take care of the family, a man and the woman can take care of the children. Why are we still having this fight? Like what I
Right.
don't, and maybe I'm just not exposed to as many people. Like I don't see too many women who are like stomping their feet begging to be housewives again.
Right.
And I don't see men stomping their feet saying, I must be the sole provider. So I wonder how much of this is just blown up. I see a lot of it as like this is just blown up drama, like people making
Right.
making drama to make drama.
And I think some people also think that it's like a quirk, or it makes them unique, that they have this like, oh, I am so traditional that I think this, that, and the other about.
Right.
I don't know if it's just a like something that people think makes them different. In my opinion, it kind of makes
Well,
them
I think
so.
so. I think some of the podcasts specifically are for that. If we talk
Right.
about something incredibly polarizing, and if we talk about something that we know is going to ruffle feathers, it just gets more listeners. It's basically like a glorified tabloid. Like I'm exposed to a lot of people in like other connections that we have, right? Business owners, clients, people that
Right.
I've worked with in the past. And I know a lot of people who like a husband and a wife, so let's just say a traditional male and a female in a marriage, who both own businesses independently of one another and also own businesses together, and there's no strife on who does what.
Right.
Like it's the whole thing of, you get to that level of, I do this in the household because that's just what I've committed to doing. You're doing this in the household because that's what you're committed to doing. It's not a big deal of, there's not this big, I don't feel like a man because you're asserting yourself. That's,
Right.
I just don't see that in real fights or disagreements in real relationships to people that I actually know.
Right. And I think you and I are both very fortunate with the relationships that we are in, that we don't deal with that sort of like, both of our partners lift us just as much
Right.
as we lift them.
Right.
I mean, what's so crazy is that I've been in relationships before where it's been that mindset, but never glorified. It was just truly what that person thought was just you're a woman, what do you know? Kind of thing. And it
Mhm.
was obviously it didn't work out. But yeah, it's shocking to me and not shocking at the same time that there's people that still think like that.
The one thing that used to bug the shit out of me, and it still kind of does, and some of this runs rampant in the coaching industry, where let's say that the husband, or so to speak, but I see this in a lot of men's coaching groups, that they very much push your wife wants to be led. She wants you to make decisions
We're
for
not
her.
dogs. We're
She
not
wants
dogs.
you she wants to be led. She wants you to make decisions for her. She wants you to make sure she's taken care of. And I play some of that stuff for my husband, and he's just like, what happened to a
Why?
marriage? What happened to a marriage like you making decisions together? It's like I
Right.
don't want someone running behind me. I don't want
But at
somebody
the same
like
time, there's people that want that, and that's fine if you want that. This goes to like
right.
every controversial thing ever said, ever done. Like that's fine if you think that way, but don't
Mhm.
lead it like it's the right and only way. Like I'm gonna live my
Oh
life how
god,
I
yeah.
want to live my life. And
That's
this
kind
gets
of
we could go into
everything.
politics talking about this. It's just going
100%.
you
Yeah.
if you actively try and influence a group to think that that mentality is the right way, it's fine if you and your partner, if that's what you guys want, don't glorify it, don't broadcast it, because if you truly want it, you're going to keep it within your own home. If
Yeah.
you don't truly want it, or if you don't truly
Practice it.
exercise
Yeah.
exercise it, you keep glorifying it to everybody to make them think like you so that you look like this. It all goes back to that God complex. It honestly does. Like man wants to feel like they've done it all. Yeah.
I mean, I guess, man, whatever. I just don't I maybe because I've always lived in a space, and again, live your life how you want to live your life. And again,
Absolutely.
I'm
Like this is
talking
not to judge anybody that
no, no,
has that
no.
mindset.
And here's the thing, I'm not this isn't even like a I don't want this to even seem like a slight at stay-at-home moms, like because it's not. That's a lot of work. At the and the way that I look at it is the whole like what feels right now in the media, especially on social media, of this battle of the sexes right now, like that always exists to a degree. But here's the thing, without the internet, it wouldn't be as in your face and polarizing and
Exactly.
down your throat. And it's funny because that one TikTok that talks about shut up, we don't need any more podcasts. Well, that might be kind of why this one's called Fuck Your Podcast, because it's just another group of men talking about, and again, I don't even think that they believe the shit that they're spewing. It's
No, they
just,
just want to feel like they're an influencer.
right. They're just trying to influence a group of people. And and like some of these I watched, like they have a whole panel of women who look like Instagram models. So don't tell me that these are just people that you know and you're pulling them together to get their intellect. You're doing this for it's a very calculated, basically a TV show.
Right.
It's a glorified
Right.
reality show is what they're
Right.
doing. Because in the real world, sure, there are groups of people, and there's definitely instances where some of that dynamic is toxic. But like I said, most of the people that I know, it's just whatever whatever works for you, and it's okay. At the end
Right.
of the day, if it's ethical and no one's getting hurt, there are some instances where when you're a married couple and you don't, let's say you don't have kids, and you both of you are contributing to income to the household, and then you want to make a huge life change, like let's say you want to buy a house, let's say you're going to move, let's say you're going to have kids, and at some point certain responsibilities shift. And so most normal, I would say probably 60 to 70% of the population, most normal adults just have that conversation of, okay, so what's this going to look like going forward? Who's going to stay home with the kids? Are we going to put them in daycare? Like, are you passionate about your career, or are you just working in a job? And like most of those conversations, that take place in a healthy relationship. But honestly, it really comes down to when that dynamic doesn't work out that way, it's because you have a lot of really immature people in a relationship together that probably should have worked on themselves before bringing somebody else into their nonsense. And I don't think that has anything to do with gender. That's just people in general.
Right.
So that's not even a man versus woman thing.
Right.
So it's it's kind of crazy. That one clip that you were talking about earlier, the one that I listened to, it was I can't remember who was the guy on Bill Maher. It was Bill Maher's show, and there was a clip of somebody talking about how society is positioning men, like they're talking about all men, as basically an alone man is the most dangerous thing in the world, and that like society should make this huge shift to rescue men.
But here's the thing, like why it's that the whole discussion was talking about this man/male crisis that's going on, and you could have easily taken it to encourage women. Why was it not about how well women are doing? Right. You know, it was about, oh, what's going on with all of these, you know, everything with men in society these days, and how this, that, and the other statistic. And they were talking about women beating out men in certain statistics. And it's like, why do we care? Like, either way, like if roles were if roles were reversed,
nobody would be talking about it.
No. It would be like, okay, it's just another great day for man, right? Like,
yeah,
hop along.
Yeah, nobody would be talking about it at all. If you were to say like all of the you know, 50% or more of what was the statistic? It was about graduating college. It's like if you were to say 50% of men who graduate college aren't interested in women who don't have a college degree, they'd be like, okay. But you flip that around and it's like, oh, upheaval. Like we're not forcing men to not go to college.
No, like do what you want. But if you don't have anything, you're not passionate. Like if you're not passionate about something, if you have no aspirations in life, me personally, I'm not going to be interested in you.
Yeah.
Okay, go on, carry on, bye.
No, and that's a good point, because I would say that, like, if you really think about it, so let's say we are condoning for the traditional, like we want to take 40 years back, 50 years back, hell, it's probably 60, 70 years back. Let's go back to the 1950s. We want to revert to where all women are in the home, taking care of the house. So are you telling me that women didn't look at their prospects back then based on a man's ability to provide an income? So it's the same thing fast forward to today, and I wouldn't hold that against a man if he were viewing a woman the same way. Like if your mindset is that you're looking to aspire to maybe open a business, maybe run a business, or to be successful, that you would try to align yourself with someone else that's successful, what the hell's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
One way or the other. So, but where they were bitching about in that video is that women have higher standards based on their own success, but they're okay with women who having standards 70 years ago based on a man's ability to earn. It's the same thing.
Right.
It's the same fucking thing. It's like, ugh.
Anyway. I just think all of that, I mean, equality or gender roles, or however you want to put it, that's always been a thing, you know, but I just hate that media and internet and social media, like all of that stuff is just, like I said, glorified. Like I say glorified, but it's really like extorted.
Oh, you know, 100%.
And that's what sucks, is that the influencers have taken over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being an influencer, but from a marketing standpoint, my brain's going, they're reaching the people that are bringing them the income. Okay.
Yeah.
But also, like, you suck if you're taking advantage. If it's just about a paycheck.
Well,
look what you're doing to the world.
Trash is trash, so it doesn't really matter. Like, trash human beings are just trash human beings. And I mean, I probably have a little bit of a controversial view on equality in general, and this is something that I've always said in the past, where when it comes to, and I don't know, maybe somebody might look at me more of like a pacifist, or it's like, if you don't have, if you don't have an opinion one way or another, then you just, what do you stand for? I'm like, give me a fucking break. You know what I stand for? I stand for people being treated like people,
Right.
regardless of their age, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race, regardless of their sexual orientation. People should be treated like people.
Right.
And like, as far as saying everybody should be treated like, or there should be equality. And so that's where the word equality is perverted, like that because they'll look at it or at least the polarizing, toxic masculinity side of it is like, well, there is no such, like, there is no equality. Like, men and women are just not equal. And it's like,
Right.
okay, based on what? Based on distinguishing factors, sometimes based on strength. Okay, I can get that. Like, I can see that perspective, right? Like, men and women, like, men are never going to be able to have babies. Women, that's what they do. Like, that's like, there's just biological differences. I get it. It's not equal. They're different. Like that,
Right.
but that doesn't mean one is less than the other. It's different. So can we
Right.
all say that it's not about being equal? It's recognizing the differences and just knowing what they are and being okay with it. But no, everybody has to have an opinion on what the differences are. And at the end of the day, where I draw the line is, if we want to recognize differences, that's fine. Like, I mean, if you're telling me, if I get to know you and you tell me a distinction about you that makes you different about somebody else, that's fine. If I like you as a person, it is what it is. I'm not going to treat you less than a human.
Right.
And that's the thing that bothers me. Because when you look at it in the professional world, I have recruited for actually a handful. And I hate to say it, I'm not going to name any names, but I've recruited for a handful of roofing companies specifically who would not hire a woman in a particular role. They just would not. And like, that's at the end of the day is discrimination if they can do the job and if they have the knowledge to do the job. It would be no different if you went to a southern state and they're just like, well, I'm not going to hire somebody because their skin's brown and we work in white neighborhoods. Like, that's discrimination in its essence.
What people don't understand is we are allowed to judge, or we're not allowed to judge, but we can make decisions based on other people's actions, not on other people's appearances. And that's what the world sucks at, is everybody wants to judge based on appearance and not about their actions.
Right. That, and who made you in charge to determine the box that I need to be stuck in?
God complex.
It's like, I can see where that comes down to that. But no, it's like, there's nobody's place to shove somebody into a box. And are people, like, when it comes back to, we can circle back around to specifically men and women, like, is there going to be equality? Is it equality? No, they're different. They're inherently different.
Right.
But there should not be anybody treated less than because of the role they've decided to play in their life. That's their business.
Right.
And at the end of the day, what you decide to do in your life, if it's completely different than these people over here, doesn't mean you get to shove it down other people's throat.
Right.
And decide what's right or wrong.
Right. I mean, and that could go, I mean, we could fucking go off in a million directions with that. With religion, with
politics,
gender roles, with politics, with education, all of it. We could go and spiral, absolutely spiral. But we're not going to.
No, we're not going to go down that road. The one thing, so what's always worked for me and my relationship may not work for other people, but just as like if you think of best practices, so like, what are some of the best things that, came from my relationship? Because I haven't always owned a business. My husband did, and we were in our 20s, and we had to make tough decisions then on who was going to do what based on him running the business and me supporting him, but then also me working in that business. But giving him what he needed from an encouragement standpoint is one thing based on somebody telling me this is what you're supposed to do. Like your duty as a woman is to do this particular thing. It wasn't like that at all. We came to an agreement. We had a conversation on who was going to do what. We had a small child at the time. So it was
Hey, Gabrielle.
we made it work. She remembers what it was like because I mean she was like our youngest employee. She was 2-3 years old and was with us all the time. And you know that's just what we did. And what's crazy is that I guess maybe we just communicate better than most adults. I don't know. I mean, I'm pat myself on the back. I can pat myself on the back to a degree because we've been together for a really long time and we've gone through some really rough shit. And at the end of the day, none of it had to do with the rough things that we went through. Never really had to do with who's going to do the laundry versus who's going to do the yard work. You know, it was just who's going to, you know, we don't have this like the woman must submit or the man doesn't find them attractive or the man must be physically intimidating or the one today that boggled my mind. Oh, well, side note, I'll put a pin in that. We'll go back to that. But we just always made it work where I cook, he does the laundry. There's certain things he does, but we contribute to the household. And when decisions are made, it's not about I trust him to make the best decision. I trust him to be my leader. Like this isn't, you know, oh my God.
Here's how I would put it, because Cole and I believe, have a very healthy balance of this as far as it comes to working. When I first moved here, for those who don't know, I lived in Missouri, in St. Louis, Missouri, my entire life up until September of 2022, where I moved down to Houston, Texas with my long distance boyfriend. And a lot of things were up in the air. I had a job down here, or I had interviewed and gotten the job down here and was supposed to quit my job in St. Louis. And I get to training with a new job. Turns out the boss is a creep. So it was like
pretty big creep.
Okay. Thank you to the boss in St. Louis that allowed me to work remote to where I had that backup. And Cole being in a job that he completely hated, and that was bringing in little to no income. Just because of the way it was set up and who his bosses were. And we moved here, and it was like stressful the first, I want to say like month and a half. I was like buying groceries every week. A lot of the bills were on me. Not all of them, but a majority. And that's it. It wasn't a big deal at the time. We were, it was like in the figuring it out stage of living together. And Cole came to me about a month after we moved in, and he had this job. He said, I'm getting a new job. I got this job. It's going to have great opportunity. And I was like, I never told him this. And if he listens to this, he's going to be like, what? But, I internally freaked out. I was like, oh my God, why did I do this? This is like, everything's going downhill. Turns out this job has been a great opportunity for him as far as income, providing for the family, but that doesn't mean that I'm not also providing for the family. There's a lot of things that I do when he looks to me for help. There's a lot of things that he does when I look to him for help, but that's only on a when we look at each other basis. You know, if I need help from him, he's got my back. When he needs help from me, I've got his back. No matter the workload, no matter what. We make it happen. And that's what you just do in a household. If you want to build this life together, you got to find, it's never going to be 50-50.
No.
But I think Michelle Obama talked about this. It's like never 50-50. It's sometimes it's 80-20. Sometimes it's 60-40.
Right.
It'll never be 50-50.
No. And that's the thing is like, you've got to be okay with that. So can you imagine? So here's the thing. So like, let's say you're very rigid about a very old school patriarchal, type of relationship, right? So like, let's say you're very hard-nosed on that. What do you do in the instance that, let's say the husband loses his job? And there are times that when, if you allow yourself to be 100% identified by your profession, that can take an emotional toll. And we all talk about not giving men, or there's a lot of people talk about not giving men the appropriate the permission, so to speak, to focus on their mental health and how something like that can really rattle them. And if you live in that space, all you're doing is compounding the pressure that he's got to figure out a thing to provide when you have another fully capable adult who could have been bringing in income this entire
Right.
time, or
Right.
could say, hey, you know what, you take some time to figure you out while I go earn the money
Right.
and let you get back up on your feet. Where there's some people that are like, fuck that, he's a man. And and that's not realistic. I mean, I don't think
Mhm.
that's realistic. So sometimes it's that, like you said, the 80-20 or 60-40, it's got to be fluid. And if we're all grown-ups here, you can figure that out as
Right.
long as you're communicating to one another.
I love the saying everything is figure outable.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
it is. It really is. And I
Right.
never realized that until now with having crew and
Mhm.
and being like shoved into stepmother roles. Like
Right.
it'd be one thing if I just moved here and had my own place, but I moved here and I moved in with Cole, which meant I moved in with crew every
Right.
other week. And that's been like the biggest part that I've figured out, that everything is figure outable. You just kind of, it's not a wing it,
Yeah.
it's an organized wing it. Like that's what it feels like. Like it's coming, but
Mhm.
you figure it out. I don't know. You get what
And
I'm saying.
no, I do. And one of the things that I try not to be like this older asshole sometimes because like when I try not to speak from a place of wisdom in like a place of with superiority. Sometimes it can cross my mind that way, but like when you've lived through, and here's the distinction. Somebody with wisdom who actually wants to help people can say, hey, this is, I went through this experience and this is what I learned from it. Because if you can survive most relationships, like especially mine, I can say that I've lived our marriage has lived through um business, has lived through businesses that have failed, has lived through bankruptcy, has lived through adultery, has lived through divorce. If you can make it through those four things, then I can tell you the gender roles on who's going to do the fucking laundry and mop the floor is pretty minor.
Right.
Like the fact that people are still arguing on whether or not who should be bringing in income. I mean, I would say we're lucky. We're not the type of couple that really fights or very
Mhm.
often. But there were instances kind of like what you described where when I left a a salary job with an established company to go follow someone else and help fulfill their vision on a company starting from nothing, I don't think my husband wasn't real happy because
Yeah.
at the time I was making the money because he had gone through that life transition and had to pack up and pack away a business and take a job that he actually loved doing that didn't start out making very much money. And I
Right.
had told him like this is my turn to make sure the bills are paid so you can go find something that you love to do. And that was a very conscious conversation that we had. And then when I just decided to walk away from that and go do something else, he's like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, your income like supports this family right now where because this is what we agreed to."
Mhm.
And I just said, "I'm trusting in the direction that I'm going. I'm trusting that this will be successful because I know what I'm capable of. I just need you to believe in me and let's not fight about this." And so that was like a role reversal because most of the time you would see that that was a man doing that, not the woman. Where I'm just asking you to support me. Like I'm
Right.
just asking you to cheer me on right now.
And that's
Well,
exactly what I had to do with Cole when he was like, by the way, I'm quitting my job. And like I had the internal freak out. That was the knee jerk reaction.
yep,
And seeing Cole's confidence definitely helped. He was just like, this is going to be life changing. This is what we need.
right.
And it was like, okay, I support you. But in
Mhm.
the back of my mind, going, okay, be prepared, like mentally prepare yourself. If things don't work out, you have to figure it out. I was just in like that hyperdrive mode.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. Exactly.
Yeah. And that can go either way versus if it's the man or the woman. And here's the thing that, like, if I were to preach a message to anybody listening, if you, here, like, if you can see the confidence in the other person, like, then you should feel that confidence and reciprocate that towards them.
Right.
Because when I decided to move on and, just a few months ago and go out on my own from a coaching standpoint, and then that in turn, I'm like, marketing's the direction I'm going to go. So we're going to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
He just, now that his career and his business is successful and pretty stable, he was just kind of like, he didn't express any anxiety to me. He just goes, "How do you feel about it?" And I'm like, "I'm not worried about it."
Right.
He's like, "Okay." And he's like, "Are you confident in the amount of money that you can make? Are you confident in the type of work that you can do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm 100% confident."
Right.
Like, I'm not worried about it. Like, I know what I can do. I know who I can help. I am so confident about it. I'm so confident in my skills right now. You will never have to worry that I'm not going to still continue to bring income into the household. And he just goes, "Okay, all right, go get it." So that's just how we've operated. And not that I'm saying the way that I do it is the best way to do it. It's not bad.
No, it hasn't failed you.
Yeah, but that's that whole thing where we see all these like super polarizing podcasts, right? I think these people are full of shit. And the one
I've seen those people. We've witnessed that firsthand. The preaching fucking podcast and it not being exercised outside of the fucking preaching.
Like it actually not happening, right?
At all, by any means.
Yeah, that's the one that I saw today was a oh man. Now I can't remember what it was. Shit. Crap. I'll think about it later.
There goes Katie.
What?
It's never coming back. That
What
thought.
Oh, that thought, right? It's just gone.
It's gone. See you never.
And another thing too, it's like, how if your partner, your significant other is so caught up on they're so if they're so hung up on what the boxes that you need to fit into, are they really even looking at you for your actual skills and your talents and your capabilities? Because I got really tired and I got really tired and really exhausted hearing that, like, that basically my future or my destiny was to be determined by what someone else thought I should be doing, or what they perceived that I was good at, and that limited my capabilities of doing something else.
Right.
And it's like, well, if that role, if you're going to squeeze me into that role and I'm only going to ever be into that role, then it's just not meant for me to be here anymore. Right. Because I am capable of so much more. And there's things that I actually want to do that don't fit into this box. And if you're going to prevent me from doing it, I will find a way to do it.
Right.
I will learn how to do it. I will practice it. And I will be determined to be successful at it. And if you do that inside of a relationship, in a marriage, how are you ever going to encourage that person to be something just outside of that box? Like, you don't need, we talk about that you're just there to support them. Like if you hear the whole thing, especially if a man owns a business, that if you're the entrepreneur, your wife is supposed to be just your biggest cheerleader and your supporter and run your household and whatnot. And if all you ever think of her is those roles in that box,
that's all she'll ever be.
That's all she'll ever be. And then you're going to get, and I see this, how many entrepreneurs do you know that have been divorced?
How many entrepreneurs
in the toxic mess?
The ones that, hold on, the ones that are preaching this mindset of being in a box and this is what you should do and this is what your person should do, and don't ever mix it up. Like, don't ever get it twisted, right? How many of them have you seen that say, and I have respect for some of them, not all of them. How many of them have you seen that have a divorce or two,
Mm-hmm.
have a suicide story? And that is not to take lightly to suicide. That's
Sure.
just saying all of them apparently have one.
Well, it's a comeback story of some sort.
Right.
Some of
Or
it's
have some
related.
sort of addiction problem that they came back from.
Sure.
I feel like every entrepreneur, male entrepreneur that I know that had that story, it was just like, you're the same person that does not practice what you preach.
Yeah.
So how are you going to expect to put someone in their place when you are not going to make a place for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Here's the contradiction in that. This is the hypocrisy that's in it. And I only know of one coach who I've personally paid, who I've seen grow his family with the same woman and overcome a couple career obstacles, and now, you know, his mess is his message, and is probably, I would say he's probably the one that I view with the most integrity out of.
Who's that? Can we shout them out?
Can we shout them out? No, I mean, I shout him out to anybody that I talk to about coaches.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring him in. I'm not going to bring him into this mess personally. Male entrepreneurs. So here's the hypocrisy. In what this whole, like, there's this little sect of male entrepreneurs who preach this. You know, your wife needs to be your support person and your biggest cheerleader and blah blah blah, which is true. I support my husband and I am one of his biggest cheerleaders. However,
he's also your biggest cheerleader.
Right. And however, when shit goes wrong, or let's say you've shoved this woman into this box and she's just to be the wife and the nurturer, and her identity starts to become that, he starts to get fucking bored. He gets bored with her.
Yeah.
And then he starts to see, well, because she's not focusing on becoming the best version of herself, she's being shoved into a box.
She's right. I mean, and this is the same goes. I know this entire time we're like, well, the male entrepreneur to the female, it can go the other way.
Oh, 100%.
The female to the male, and you
just don't see it as common
to be a stay-at-home mom, and you have to provide everything, and da da da
right.
da. It goes both ways.
It can. It can 100% go both ways. I've just not seen it as often. I've seen it.
Correct.
Just not as often. And so this is the fucked up part with that entrepreneur mindset and the roles that go along with that, where he starts to get bored with her. Mm-hmm. And then he starts to want things from her that he's never communicated to her. Why aren't you involved in the business? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?
Because and then it turns into that person doesn't support me as much as I think
doesn't support me. And then the whole rhetoric starts to take over, and they say things like, this woman is she's just not to my level, right? She's not leveling up at the speed that I'm leveling up.
I hate when people say I'm leveling up. Yeah. Okay, are we playing Super Mario? Like what?
But, so and again, I can appreciate the philosophy, right? But they're almost saying, like, you don't hear it near as much when you're coaching female entrepreneurs, but man, they hit that shit hard home when it's male entrepreneurs, and the woman is now, she's not living up to the expectation that, I don't know, was it ever fucking communicated, or did you just shove her into the box? Because then what happens is she's not leveling up the speed that I'm leveling up. She doesn't care about the things now that I care about. When in reality, the two of you have never been in sync from the beginning, likely from a communication standpoint. And then what happens is he trades her in for a newer model. You know, and that's where most of those divorces happen.
The newer, younger model.
And it's like, so much of that could just be fixed if you viewed marriage, regardless of gender, So I don't care if it's a heterosexual marriage, if it's a gay marriage, whatever. As long as you view that marriage as a partnership, and you were to list all of the role and responsibilities of having that, like, I've decided I'm going to build a life with you. Like, I've decided I'm going to build a life with you. I'm not picking a wife just because society is telling me that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm legitimately picking a partner that I want to have a life with because we have common interests, common goals, and common values. And so, based on those things, we delegate the responsibilities. And as far as that goes, it's equal in one fashion or another. And
Right.
at the end of the day, if it ends up being one person's the breadwinner, one person's the caretaker, that just is what it is. Sometimes that shifts over time, but it's that whole part of just focus on the fundamentals.
Right.
Like, do I want to build a life with you? Who cares what the fuck society says? Who cares what your coach says? Who cares what your therapist says? Come together. And if you can't communicate and come together, you're either one, you probably shouldn't be together. There's something clashing about the two of you.
Right.
Or two, maybe you do need the therapist to figure out how to communicate.
Just go to therapy. Remember that?
Oh my God.
Just
Therapy.
go to therapy.
Therapy's fine. It's okay.
Therapy's great. It's okay.
It's okay to go.
It's expensive, but just go to therapy.
But
And that's like, I don't mean to, there's situations in the world that are far more greater than mine. But from my personal experience, having that with Cole and how I met Cole and deciding after messaging each other and meeting each other, like,
right.
I like the way you think. I like the way you carry yourself. I like the aspirations you have in life. I want to build a life with you, no matter what that looks like.
Right.
And that was scary because it was like, he lived in Texas. I never met him in person. I saw a video of him on TikTok and was like, he's cute. Let me message him, right? You know, not thinking anything of it. And him meeting my mom the first time and her having no idea that this is a person that I had never met in person before, that
Right.
flew to Missouri to meet me and going, I want to build a life with you, and pissing off my entire family by moving 12 hours away.
Right.
But knowing that this is a person that I want to build a life with.
Yeah. I mean, when you know, that's the
Right.
thing. And the way that people come together, there's several different ways to come together. I mean, somebody might look at your story and be like, oh my God, that's crazy. They met on TikTok. Some people might look at my story and say, I apologize in advance, Justin, but some people might look at how we
Justin.
Some people might look at how we met and be like, oh my God, like she went to school with his younger brother. Like she was a senior in high school when they met. Like people might look at that and judge. At the like people are going to judge, but the fundamental part of it was he was just like, there's something different about this person. Like there's like you get one another.
Something sticks. Yes.
And that's that whole thing of you can't you find the person that just gets you and you get them. And you learn, you got to take that time to learn enough about them to when you make that decision to live together. Living together is always going to be a work in progress.
Oh my God.
A relationship's
oh my God.
Like living here. I think we could do a whole podcast on coexisting with other humans.
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, if you wait, and this is, I hate, man, this is going to be a hot topic, but if you wait until you get married to live with the person that you've decided to marry, you're fucking it up. Like, that's one thing that I can say. It's like,
we're also not encouraging you to go live with every partner you ever.
No, yeah, not that at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with dating people
for the
and
week,
not living.
though. I will tell you that it is
No, it's
not for the week at all.
It's got to be that person. But honestly, if you wait until you're now legally bound to this person to live together,
marriage.
Yeah, that's rough because it's figuring that's the foundation of figuring out those day-to-day roles, right? All right. So we're gonna wrap this one up for this week. I think we've ranted enough. I'm now emotionally exhausted. I need to go take a break, go home, have a cocktail,
I'm about to
make dinner because that's my
pop a beer.
It's my traditional female role, right?
You could listen to this on Spotify. You could listen to this on Apple Podcasts. You could write in. You could email us. You could follow us on Instagram at F__K your pod. Email me at Emma@99creatives. Email Katy at
Katy at 99 Creatives.
um
And it's Katy with the Y. Katy.
Emma is EMMA. I don't
Right.
know any other way to spell it. But yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. And don't forget, do the damn thing.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.